What's going on, YouTube? Rukari here, back with another episode of the Minotaur Hotel. It has been a hot minute, but we are back with Asterion. You and Asterion head out side by side. If I remember correctly, we're going to a concert of some kind where he's supposed to be the main star. It's night out. The grand staircase is draped in darkness, but a glimpse towards the heavens reveals the twinkling stars. An immense foamy sea, moving ever so slow. Murmurs and song crawl up from the ground floor. So what do you have in mind for tonight? Just a few of the old... Wait, no, that's not your voice. Just a few of the old songs I know. Nothing special. In fact, they may sound odd for modern sensibilities. They are... Asterion sighs and looks down to his lyre. He rubs his thumb over the side of it, back and forth, followed by a flick of his ears. There's a rhythm to him. His thumb is twice as fast as his steps downstairs. His ears flicker after every third step, and his tail switches after every fifth. Then he almost stumbles. He's not yet used to his new center of gravity. He puts a hand on the guardrail and snorts. As soon as he takes his next step, he stumbles again. You reach out to hold his hand. Are you sure there's nothing wrong? I'm sorry, Master. I am just a bit in my head. You attempt to let go of his hand, now larger and rougher than before, but his fingers curl around yours and resist, at least until he gingerly lets you go. He takes a breath and seems to concentrate. You reach the ground floor and take the hallway to the lounge. The lights aren't lit yet, so you and Asterion walk in darkness once more. Further ahead, there is a slit of light flowing from the lounge's door, and beyond is the hallway that leads you to the kitchen where you found Asterion mere days ago. The guests' laughter and voices, Luke's boisterous shrieks, and Coda's rumbling bass, and now your footsteps mixed with the clopping of Asterion's hooves. His gait is larger than yours now, lumbering, slow movements, each step swaying him like a pendulum from side to side. Still, the two of you find a common rhythm. 3 of yours for every second step of his. Oh, that's like the... Sorry, I don't know why I really quickly wanted to try and do the syncope of the 2 for 3. You're almost there now. You look to the Minotaur, he looks away, then back to you, and brings his gaze down to your feet. I'm sure you'll do fine, Asterion, but good luck. I'll get you a cup of water for when you go on stage. You turn to move away, but the Minotaur's hand catches yours. He pulls you close with a stiff jerk, then wraps you with his other arm. He squeezes you, but in an almost glacial, gentle way, mixed with the warmth of his skin and breath around you. Despite his newfound bulk, Asterion is soft, and his fur like silk against your skin, and spreading around you a gentle scent. No fragrance, except for a distant note of warm fur and tanning skin. I don't know if tanning skin is the smell you want to come off of a cow, considering what that stage is in the process. His hooves shuffle, not knowing where to step, but each movement is shy. They graze the floor instead of stomping it, afraid of so much as scraping your shoes. He lays his head on top of yours, with his muzzle in particular nuzzling against your hair. He grumbles something, and it takes a few tries for him to say it out loud. Thanks. Thank you. There is warmth around you, but also tension. Asterion's movements remain jerky and stiff. Your own surprise passes over, however. You respond to his hug in kind. His tail jerks and swishes in response, then droops. A rumble escapes his throat as you squeeze his midsection. The tension dissipates. His shoulders relax. His arms fit and mold around you. The weight of his head falls on yours. He breathes through your hair and nuzzles you. His pink nose is soft, even a bit wet. You squeeze him harder, but with the same glacial pace his own movements displayed. You're met with another grunt, although by now you can tell it's not one of complaint. Does the mic even pick that up? This is such a weird thing to be doing. Just mooing at the microphone. The two of you remain very still as the voices further ahead celebrate and cheer their own victories, their brief nights of rest, or perhaps even a newfound home. Just out of sight, surrounded by light, they celebrate, and here in this velvety darkness, you and Asterion breathe each other's scents. When the time comes to say goodbye, the two of you relax your fingertips, then hands, and finally arms, as bit by bit you disentangle yourselves. Just like that, it's over, and the only evidence left of this gesture, besides a sweet memory, is the Minotaur's quickened, shallow breathing. He looks down to his clothes, now rumpled, and moves to tidy them before looking back to you, then to the lounge and his lyre. The moment for departure is at hand. It's time for his concert to start. He turns halfway, and then swivels back to you, mouth agape and eyes seeking words. That stiffness returns by degrees to his movements. He grumbles something, perhaps another thank you, although he seems to transition into another more complex phrase you couldn't quite catch. Thank you. I enjoyed that. You don't gotta be all flustered. It was nice of you. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Also.
The growing agitation does not dissipate, but it does not increase either. So feel free to hug me again if you wish. May I do the same to you? We're all buddies here, right? Yeah, we're just friends. They're neighbors. They were the best of friends, and that's why they lived together and died together and were buried at the exact same spot in the graveyard.
Well, yes, Master, that would be very pleasant. Thank you.
Something shifts in his eyes. There was once a sharpness there, perhaps a measure of fear. It had wavered in and out like a flame resisting the wind ever since you released him from the cold room. But it's gone for now, and he sees you.
Sometimes I look at you, and it's like I am seeing an old friend I knew back in Crete, like a little window into the past.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, friends are a very precious thing, Rukari. Perhaps I want to believe. I was so confused today, but the wine must have loosened me, and now... I'm rambling, I know. Forgive me.
The Minotaur's ears flicker as the voices inside the lounge get rowdier. He budges, as if turning back to the door, but his eyes don't want to leave you. The Minotaur takes another deep breath. With an almost identical, almost rehearsed movement, he grabs you close again in his arms, but more gentle, more deliberate. He only holds you for a second, too short for you to even respond in kind. Before you know it, he lets you out of his brief embrace again. He doesn't quite meet your gaze.
You, said I could hug you again if I wished, so...
Oh, baby, you look so shy and awkward. You laugh. I did say that, and I did mean it, so thank you again. Shall we go in? He nods to you. He smiles to himself, and he nods again to you. You take a step forward, and side by side, the two of you go in. You know, if I was there, I could sing along if any of these songs had words, or I could just make up poems on the way. Well, the stage should be set. Do you want to get ready?
Yes, I should do that.
Go on, have fun, big guy. The atmosphere in the lounge tonight feels festive and lively, a far cry from when you first came here. Coda, you look so smug up there at the bar. Coda, who on any other day would run his restaurant like the proud captain of a tight ship, is not bothered by the chatter-infested mood of the room. Luke sits next to the Uruguayan workers. He's scooting a little too close to the burliest of the pair, laughing at all his jokes and making some of his own whenever possible, much to the other's chagrin. Ishmael and Greta are sitting at one of the tables far away. The former is glued to his phone, watching something, while the latter is pushing him to socialize. And to think, just a week or so ago, this place was dead and bloodstained. What an accomplishment. You turn to Asterion as he gets up on the stage. The Minotaur covers his eyes, the lights glare at him, carving a dull pain into the back of his head. He looks down to the steps leading up to the platform, and goes step by step as he lumbers with the new weight of his body. 20 or so sets of eyes are fixed on him, on his bullish features, his horns, his newly healed self. It's been a while since he's been in the spotlight like this. Back when he was a child, old women would come and put flowers on his horns, dozens of ladies in succession, and he would cover his eyes in much the same way then. They would ask for his blessings, the men would plead he bless their crops, until it became too much. He'd cry, and his father or wet nurse would pull him away and scold him for throwing a tantrum. He cradles the lyre against his chest, a string grazes his shirt and lets out a hum. It sends out a spark of confidence. He moves his arm away, pulls the stool, and sits down. Asterion adjusts the neckerchief you made for him, showing it off with pride to all his guests. He looks at the guests, each and every one of them in succession, then to you.
Hey, hello, everyone. I think I should introduce myself first. It got so quiet. My name is Asterion, and as you can see, I am not exactly human. I work here at the hotel. It's where I spent most of my life, in a way.
He traces his thumb along the string again, letting it vibrate into the air, not quite plucking it.
Until last week, this place was abandoned. It was just me here. I'm glad to see people again. So many new faces. So, among you are our first guests after our reopening, and I know some of you are leaving tomorrow morning. So we thought it would be nice to do something special. This is for you, our guests. But I am dedicating it to a friend. I hope you will enjoy tonight, and that when you leave, that you take with you fond memories. If you ever need a home, or just a place to rest, our doors are open.
The Minotaur positions his lyre and breathes. Oh, everybody's getting along. The shadow people are at the background having a great time. He places his fingertips along a few strings on one side of the lyre and strums with his other hand. He begins to hum. It gets louder, though through plaintive notes of the chant-like rhythm. He says a few snatches of words as he begins to pluck out the melody he hummed. I have hiccups now. Ah! Only the last line did he sing out, a look of consternation and worry fading into simple calm as the last notes fade to silence.
I hope you don't mind I didn't sing that one. I found just as I got on stage I could not remember the words, so I hoped the strings alone would do. I wasn't quite sure that the muses were with me this evening, but the 9 of Helicon are here, it seems, and they deserve acknowledgement before I continue. My older brother taught me to play, and one of the first things you do in a performance is invoke the muses, he said. Tonight they did not see fit to remove song completely from me, and made me remember my brother. May my song's reverence with them be always as their mercy is to me. So I thank you, muses, who are not too cross with me. Please aid my song.
He plucks another melody out, a single line of notes stretching through the room, strings left to ring out. Once you notice how much the melody has the contour and cadence of speech, you hear his fingers stop a few strings. He strums again and begins to sing, putting words to what he just played. It is not quite a bellow, but his bovine throat is open as his voice rumbles out in an epic hymn. A lyric, a drinking song. While the song lasts, he is shameless, his presence flows and captivates. His heaviness was never less burdensome. Between each of these, however, Asterion's bashfulness returns as he explains what the song is about. But while he sings and while he plays, he's not self-conscious. His eyes aren't closed out of shyness, but out of feeling like himself.
Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed your stay, and thank you once again.
He's just a cute, sweet, shy boy. Honestly, it would be kind of epic to hear, like, okay, my phone is ringing. That's, a new one. Am I finally hearing from my family on the outside, wondering where I've disappeared to and haven't been able to contact them for a week? I've been having the strangest dreams lately, Dad. Oh, that's not the voice that I should have paired that with. Crap, what? You're a peacock. Buffering. I see into this dark room. It looks like some kind of ancient Greek temple or something. At the middle of it, there's a big hunk of purple rock. I've been having those ever since Grandpa died, and we had that whole thing about his will. But lately it's different. There were people there, a number of them actually, and, you know, one of them was a Minotaur. Just like Grandpa said. Okay, am my parents from Animal Crossing? I've been thinking about it, yes. I mean, it's not like I have anything better to do right now. Why, yes, I am getting on a train to go and visit a mysterious village in the middle of nowhere run by a tanuki. I got a job offer, kinda, but they don't know for sure yet. And I have some savings. Well, I've been thinking about paying Grandpa a visit, a little car trip. Who knows, maybe his stories about that hotel are true after all. I want to find that out for myself. What's that? Don't get into strange hitchhikers' cars in the middle of the road? Now, that's a very mean thing to say about your own father. You taught me better than that. Listen, none of that is going to stop me. You might as well save yourself the effort. What's that? Don't get on boats sailing over whales to tiny remote islands in video games? It's best if I hang up now. Goodbye. Oh, that really pissed him off. Fucking piece of shit. There goes the tail. I'll show you. Wasn't my phone. New character. Don't know who he is. He's a peacock. Looks like he's an actuary. As a night rages and cheers only for a short while, time always takes his due. Still, they had no grief at all. They danced and drank, laughed and sang until their voices grew hoarse and eyes dimmed. And further they celebrated as if somehow a victory could be made eternal if it burned bright enough. Sitting at the sidelines of the lounge, surrounded by mankind but locked inside his mind, the Minotaur lost himself in thought. Such a human thing. Did the guest and the master perhaps know it, the archaic ritual taught by his old friend? Celebrate and live for a whole night. Do not cease until your back burns out all its weight, and under no circumstances allow the bonfire to go out. Then take a handful of embers, grayed and crumbling on the outside but still harboring a red heart. Pour a stream of your finest wine, saved from the festivities, to kill the night's fire. Sounds like a very Greco-Roman thing to do. Old Feronius swore he overheard it during a priestess initiation when she was instructed on the mysteries of Crete's old goddess. That ritual, he said, could make a moment everlasting. It would leave daemons behind, a memory of the night etched on the land and lodged in the minds of its witnesses. He said the ember's last thread of smoke would be gathered by prayers, Zeus's daughters, and be brought to the Graces, or the Fates, or the Hours for their weaving. The more he explained, the looser his conception of the ceremony became. What silly nonsense, Asterion thought then, back in Crete. He's just saying it to cheer me up again. But the Minotaur did steal a cup of his father's wine, and together they drowned the embers, hand-picked from the basin in the courtyard where the bonfire had raged. He never believed such a ritual could work. He knew a handful of mysteries himself, and none were as simple, as innocent as that. Even in their kindest moments, the old gods charged in blood. But still he did it, because regardless of the gods, it made nights unforgettable in his mind. So, interesting thing to note about the theories of why the Greek gods are the way they are is because most of them are representative of elements in nature, and nature is inherently strange and terrifying, which is why they personify the gods as strange and terrifying. If you think of, like, thunderstorms, or the ocean waves, or death itself, there is something a little bit scary about all of that, and so they are all portrayed as a little bit scary. But almost universally so, Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, is a caring, protective virgin maiden who very rarely runs into any troubles or causes any strife to people as like in her duties, and that is because the home and the hearth is meant to be someplace safe. So instead of personifying that as something terrifying, like Zeus causing damage everywhere at the drop of a hat, or, you know, the hunt where you can just die at a moment's notice, or get crushed by ocean waves, or earthquakes, or wild animals tearing you to shreds, the hearth is safe. The hearth is kind, the hearth is gentle, because that's how your home should feel to you. Anyways, that's a tangent. I'm going off topic now. Sometimes raw belief, lacking in any form of binding magic, is enough to make something true. That was long ago. He had witnessed so many festivities in all these centuries as the hotel's keeper. Each one pushed him further towards believing that Feronius' ritual was merely a manifestation of humanity's drive to find immortality. It is only human to seek eternity. The exquisite lie that the flow of time can be stopped, trapping oneself in a bubble no tragedy can burst. Feronius wished for that mercy in Crete thousands of years ago, and humanity yearns for it still, believing in such old rituals from a time whose very gods have gone missing. Silly nonsense, bland indulgence. Hiccups, can you please stop? I'm trying to talk. Still, that night after the concert, the Minotaur went to bed with his hands covered in ashes. What an exquisite time they had. The fatigue of it all was catching up to him. A tension in his chest made the room spin around him. His fingertips were freezing. He did not notice when it happened, but pulling a single lungful of air became a laborious task. Asterion knew this too well. Time, after all, demands his due, and for every joy a greater sorrow is sure to follow. He drew a breath. A prisoner such as him was not allowed happiness. His mind told him this even as he remembered the pleasantness of the evening. He drew a breath. He forgot that he was meaning to sleep, forgot to close his eyes. The Minotaur stared at the ceiling, his thoughts became half-thoughts, and the tightness in his chest became a heaviness in his shoulders and a tension in his hands. He drew a breath. A price must be paid. There is always a catch. The sheets around him bunched up into valleys and peaks. Disquiet fought against the weariness. He drew a breath. Restless sleep overtook him. While he felt too heavy to move, a sullen tiredness in his mind, deeper than sleep, pulled him into the valley of his sheets. Whispers about his nature, words he had not allowed himself to mutter for nearly a century now. But another memory fluttered, that of Rukari's embrace. Hey, that's me. The Minotaur's nose on his head, that pacifying warmth they shared. Even this, though, is covered with the worries of, was it his place too? Was he allowed? Too soon or sudden? Overstepping boundaries? He always unwanted now. No, he always unwanted now. Intonation is important when reading those things. Morning cracked his skull open, but no dream slipped out in a sprint. The bedroom seemed just the same as it had always been, so cramped it threatened to crush him, walls so white they burned his eyes, and shelves decorated with Jean-Marie's bug-eyed carvings. He remembered to breathe, then bit his tongue. The pain came without hurry, dull and throbbing. But the Minotaur's eyes felt different, as if overnight they skipped autumn and dove into winter. If the mind were a muscle, his would be hobbling about, aching with overwork. Asterion told himself to look to the door, but didn't. Stared up, told himself to look toward the doorframe. Remember to breathe, prayed the hybrid. He drew a breath, pulled himself to get up, but didn't. He clenched his hands, felt nails sinking into his palm. They were obsidian hunks tied to his limbs, waist, eyes. Even each fold of his brain was weighed down with hooks. If the gods had sent him a shred of mercy, such weight could have crushed him entirely and ended his existence, but they made him strong and resilient to bear the load. This vessel was not made to break, he knew, even if the creatures of this realm were so eager to try. The only movement made as he finally drew his eyes to the side was an aimless clenching and unclenching of his hands. There had been many times over his everlasting existence when Asterion's spirit had felt emptied of vigor or substance like this. Depression, anxiety, possibly some sleep paralysis going on because your life has been kind of terrible, my guy. At least a handful of times per year for the last 2 millennia, without fail, although time became mushier inside the cold room. But it had not always been the case. He couldn't afford such bland indulgence when monsters chased him. Perhaps it was a jest from the gods themselves. He remembered to breathe. When a human came who sought to end his trials, yet another punishment came, this time from his own mind. But enough dawdling, little star. You must rise again regardless. There is a delay between commanding his body to move and having it muster the will to obey. He pushes himself up with the clumsiness of a marionette, willing against an inertia in his brain. There is an amount of breathing room between each limb's movement to get himself up, as if all of the force gained from a night of sleep is required. He gazes at the mirror.
Welcome back to your old self, little star.
Are you ready to see the internet? Witness the latest creation of human ingenuity. They never stopped, these sharp-eyed humans. What intricate creations their fine fingers craft. Asterion looks at his own hands, at the knobby knuckles and thick nails, each knot tied with rough, ragged rope.
Yes, of course.
Great. This is a tablet. It's a kind of computer that uses touch controls, by which I mean you just tap on the screen. It's very intuitive.
I can't see anything. Am I doing it wrong?
No, it's fine. I haven't unlocked it yet. Here, I just pressed this button, and I took the liberty of setting it up for you. Knowing you have a hard time with fine movements, I made sure things would be big and easy to tap. Do you think these are large enough? I could expand the icons more still.
Thank you, sir. This is adequate. Although, I hope I didn't impose on you a chore. Was setting it up difficult?
Not at all. Tablets all come with accessibility settings. Tailoring it to your needs is a trivial matter. Accessibility. Only humans could fathom such a thing. The gods had no love or care for Hephaestus and his imperfections.
Oh, that is very kind of them. them thinking about the disgracefully uncoordinated like me.
The man looks down to the hybrid. Asterion gazes at his eyes. He never understood why people had such a fascination for the color of each other's irises. To him, the white surrounding them was much more enthralling. Nature had been kind to him in that regard, at least. Rather than the beady blackness of a cow's eyes, he had been blessed with a fine pair of very human ones, whites and all. Perhaps it was something in the way Rukari's eyes hesitated as he searched for words, or maybe it was the Minotaur's brain slipping up for a second. But before Rukari could speak, the Minotaur felt a few centuries' worth of age lifting from his back. I wouldn't put it like that. Lots of people have injuries or special needs, but regardless of that, everyone gets old someday. We will all need the help. He chewed on it. The tone was kind. The master spoke almost like singing. But as the words were sewn together, they became thorny. Asterion bit his tongue. Was he old? Or perhaps old in the same sense that a human could be? His body was the best it had been in 80 years, but all that time spent in the cold room never left him as tired as this. It was the kind of exhaustion that made even opening one's eyes an insurmountable task. Old or disabled, the Minotaur needed this accessibility invention.
Do I have special needs, or am I just old?
Asterion mumbled it. His tongue felt bloated today. He had to grind his teeth to stop it from peeking out of his mouth. The master could not distinguish what he said. Sorry, what did you say?
No.
The master's eyes scrutinized him. They appreciate every feature of his face, as if trying to glimpse into the Minotaur's mind. His heart skips a beat. Will he realize how disposable a toy Asterion is? The hybrid cannot say what would come next, but it must be better than this feeling of being suspended and waiting for trial. Are you feeling well, Asterion? You seem a bit distressed today. Asterion looks away and draws a breath. His chest tightens and he opens his mouth. Leaves it hanging, in fact, as what he meant to say escapes him. He blinks, letting his eyelids fall as he exhales. It's so hard thinking with all those hooks on his brain. He has to string every word together, then break it all down into mouth movements, exhales and inhales, glances and hand gestures. And the delay is there, making it all worse. A gap as the sea is deep, and just as dark. When he closes his eyes and allows himself to dream, images flow like water from a spring. The master felt warm last night. Hugging him was not the trial the Minotaur expected. His mind went silent as they stayed locked together in the dark. Asterion nuzzled his nose on top of Rukari's head. He did not recoil. While it lasted, Asterion did not think of how awkward his hands could be, closing all its fingers together. It stopped being an uncoordinated claw. It just became a hand. When he readjusted his legs, he didn't even hear the clop of his hooves. All the noises eating away at the edges quieted down, muffled by velvet. The master was generous. He went through great lengths to get the wine, and what did he gain from it? Asterion bites his tongue. Perhaps some more trust is warranted. The Minotaur opened his mouth and drew a breath. The images sprung forth and words chained themselves together. By the gods, I should tell him that it feels like I'm turning to stone. Rukari must know what it means and what I should do. Asterion? But there must be a catch to him. There always is one. Are you okay? But regardless, he is not unkind. If I am to serve him and to perform this duty well, perhaps he knows how I can be made better. I should tell him. A hand warms the Minotaur's forearm. You don't seem too well. The Minotaur looks up to the human. His eyes are unmoving, not afraid or sad, but looking through the master, as if trying to focus on his face was too difficult to command. The Minotaur draws a breath and speaks before a kinder part of his mind can take control.
I'm just struggling to wake up.
Oh, it's true we haven't eaten anything yet. How about I teach you some of the basics, and then I go down and get last night's leftovers. I hid some of the appetizers in the lounge's fridge. Asterion grunts, not really listening, just asserting his vague and ever-present agreement to whatever the master has to say. Okay, so just recapping, with computer we can access the internet and find all sorts of fun stuff. Do you remember what the internet is? A question. Asterion's eyes shift. The internet. Yes. Pull the string, pull the words from your mind, and speak.
It's a way to... It's a way to get knowledge very quickly. It would take months or for a book or a letter to be delivered, but with the internet, it won't take long. Did I get it right?
Yep, let's start then. Now, I want you to tap on that icon at the top left corner. Could you do that for me?
Just tap it with a finger?
That's right, there's no mystery to it, just tap tap.
Okay, like this?
He's so shocked. So what do you want to search first?
I don't know. How do I tell it what I want to know?
Just tap here in this little white bar, and now the keyboard will pop up.
These symbols, are they normal?
What do you mean? The keyboard should show the alphabet. It's nothing out of the ordinary. He's Greek. He doesn't know the English alphabet.
Oh no, I think I broke it.
What? No way, you haven't done anything wrong.
Is my finger bad? Did I touch it wrong?
Screen looks normal to me. The Minotaur glares at the screen, trying to make sense of all the symbols. What odd lines they are, but they do awaken a sense of familiarity. His brain itches as it struggles to connect together an ancient mind with more recent knowledge. His ears flick. He hears a racket of metal mechanisms tick-tacking and reeing down at the cramped bedrock. It was coming to him, the name of the machine, a writer, a typewriter. They had been such an issue, the letters themselves had no meaning, no soul behind them. The hotel's translation could do nothing to impose order. During all the millennia, the Minotaur had spoken the language of his people without caring to learn whatever new tongue was the fad at the time. Although, to be more precise, for a good few centuries he had developed into the habit of making new words, so much so that his old Minoan had become quite unlike what he spoke as a child. But it all changed when typewriters were invented. The letters alone eluded him. He had to learn other languages and alphabets then.
This is a typewriter. The hotel doesn't like them.
Huh, why is that?
It only understands meanings and words, not what they are made of. It all breaks down.
Oh, is there something I can do then? I could read and type for you. It wouldn't be an issue. He drew a breath. The more he looked at the alphabet, how similar it was to what the Greeks invented, the less he felt the hooks on his brain.
I can remember the letters, the words too.
He tapped the screen. He meant to press the O, but tapped the P instead. An old annoyance. Simpler days returned to his mind when Jean-Marie was still alive and they were drafting contracts down at the bedrock. He never mastered the typewriter, but he was decent enough to use it slowly. He could conquer it again.
I can face this.
Rukari continues staring at the Minotaur. Is that a twinge of worry? Then it grows soft. His voice, as soon as it comes out, sounds like velvet. Of course you can. You've kept this hotel running for so long, memorizing an alphabet won't be hard for you.
Excuse me? What did you say?
You've kept this place up and running, right? Masters came and went, but you were the constant. You're very competent and hard-working. That's clear to me. Hard-working. The gods had made him strong, to carry a load no regular man could. He was a beast of burden. Yes, Asterion could take pride in that. You deal with the guests, manage check-ins and check-outs, repair the bedrooms, even cook if necessary, and last night you went as far as providing entertainment. We've just reopened the hotel and it's already doing so well. In no small part thanks to you. Is memorizing an alphabet a difficult task to someone as quick-witted as you? The hotel is doing well, the Minotaur thought. In any other context, bitter thoughts would pop into his mind. No, the hotel is still a shell of its former self. We are only housing a dozen or two guests. We barely have any staff. But when it came to this subject, his mind was unclouded. Yes, the hotel was doing well. Repairing such a big place in less than 2 weeks was nothing short of a miracle. Guests coming around now wouldn't even imagine the place had been left in ruins for 80 years. This was his one good thing. Whatever violence and disgrace the gods saw it fit to impose on him came twofold as blessings for his home. He would serve well if it meant the prosperity of his one good thing.
I am proud of the hotel.
The Minotaur's voice rumbled, followed by a harsh snort and flicker of his ears. As you well should.
Is that an order?
Consider it a friend's suggestion and a partner's recommendation.
Partner?
Partner, what a peculiar word. Asterion glanced to the side. He had to string every command together. He could feel his eyeballs dragging inside their sockets. Ugh, I don't want to think about feeling my eyeballs. That sounds like the worst sensation possible. He drew a breath, then dug his nails on the palm of his hands. Partner. Feronius used to call him that back in Crete, all the way until that night. A white bird flying off under the moonlight. The Minotaur aimed his bow and drew the string. It was not too different from plucking his lyre. That last tension before letting go. For Feronius, for that everlasting friend, but first of all for his brother, intrepid Androgeus. He set the arrow loose. Partner. They were hunting together that night, but by the end of it, Feronius called him something else, and that was the last they saw of each other. Wait, what happened? I don't Is this something where I've got to find the tablets, don't I? But at times it felt like this master was Feronius, or Androgeus' ghost given flesh. They all had such honeyed tongues. We are business partners, aren't we? We're in this together. Asterion returned from his haze.
I am afraid that is not something the hotel or the valley would ever be willing to recognize. My sentence, after all, contracts that stray too far from treating me as a prisoner would be ineffective.
What do you mean by that, exactly?
The master can command the realm to do his bidding, but there are rules and principles that stand above. If you try to pass a contract or command that disregards them, your order will not become binding. The same way you cannot summon currency, you can't sign an order saying I am your equal. That would be against the labyrinth's principles. So, I can't be your business partner. As far as the labyrinth is concerned, that is just not possible.
Rukari looks off to the side, lost in thought. Could there be a loophole, or do we really need a contract for this? Could there be a loophole? Who knows? Maybe I can find a way to circumvent this. I think I'm getting the hang of how this realm works. We could try finding a loophole we can use to achieve the same effect. Perhaps something to the effect of forbidding the master from harming you. What bold ideas. The Minotaur feels the hummingbirds picking at the back of his brain. He grits his teeth, and Rukari notices. But it would seem we got sidetracked. I was supposed to show you the internet.
Yes, sir.
So you tap here. We can begin with a few searches. I'm sure there's a lot you want to know about the outside world. Again, the peculiar alphabet popped on the screen. This time, however, it was stringed into stubborn words that didn't bend to the realm's translation. But they weren't unfamiliar. Memory sparked, loose strings tied into knots.
The hotel's translation isn't working.
That's weird. I can read it just fine, although I suppose it's because I already speak English. I wouldn't notice anything going wrong. Is this an issue?
English? No, I can read it. I learned it after we started using typewriters. I can read it. I'll just need a minute to familiarize myself.
Yeah, what language have you been speaking so far?
My language.
What does that mean?
It's my language. It was Cretan, it used to be, but with time, if everything gets translated, then I could tinker with it and make it my own. I had a hard time with certain sounds, so I just changed it, made it however it felt right. So, it used to be Minoan, but it's not anymore. It's my language.
See, you're actually really quite smart. My language. Rough, bullish lips bending in odd angles, a tongue too long and thick. During the day, his wet nurse taught him the words, repeating each one 100 times. A prince must speak well, she said. Every other week, his mother would spend a night with him. Her eyes wandered, crawled up the ceiling, and her little limp-wristed hands grasped about like a baby's. She spoke as if her mouth was always full of pebbles. Her syllables would blur together, the vowels stuttered and were washed away by her accent. Father said it was her madness speaking. The wet nurse said she came from a godly place beyond the sea, and that was their accent. Asterion drank every precious moment with his mother, including her slurred song. He could never tell if his accent came from his bestial form or from her influence. But here in the labyrinth, he let it go, took bits and pieces from other people over the centuries, stitched together something rough, shoddy, and perfect.
I made my own language.
See, I wasn't expecting that. But can you read English just fine? If not, I can help you.
Master shouldn't worry. Yes, I'm remembering. Now what should I do next?
You can start by searching for something you want to know. Try typing it, what you are curious about.
Yes, sir.
To take a glimpse of the outside world, a few things did come to mind. He had thought about them so much during those decades. What do we search? Oh, I could use it. I can use it to search Notre Dame because I'm an artiste. I can help him out with that. Okay. This episode is starting to get a little bit long, so I'm gonna pause here. And then in the next episode, we'll continue pursuing our endeavors to explore the internet with Asterion, just because I don't want to get too crazy long with these. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know it's been a little bit of a while getting caught up with things that I accidentally didn't record audio for, but we're getting back into the swing of things. Work has been a little crazy, life has been a little crazy, but we always come back around in the end, don't we? Don't we? Yeah, because we're stubborn like that, you know? The Taurus rising astrology stuff, whatever. Okay, thanks for watching. I'm gonna stop talking now. Goodbye!